Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today is a Sporting Blizzard podcast day, and I'm joined by my father, Tony Paris. Say hello to everyone, Tony.
How's everybody doing this evening?
Yep. We have two games to recap after a crazy weekend of NFL football, and I don't even think the word crazy does it justice. Along with a few times I wanted to go to the hospital during my team's game, and I will mention that a couple times, and my thoughts what happened in that game, but those will just be quick. But the two games we're recapping are the Bills-Rams and the Seahawks-Broncos. And one went exactly how I thought, and the other did not. But let's start off the one I thought pretty much was going to happen throughout the entire offseason. The Bills beat up on the Rams. And there was one person you were just telling me about day in, day out after that game that you have been dying to talk about. So I'll let you take the floor to talk about him.
Well, he's a former Ram, and Von Miller was everywhere. Um, I gave you a couple of plays to highlight and to watch, but it seemed to me that anytime they ran any sort of an option, put anybody into motion or whatever else, he knew what they were going to do. And he was absolutely going to wherever that play was going to be. And I mean, just wrecking havoc. On a couple of those plays, if you notice, I pointed out he jumped inside right at the hike just so that he could make the play and not get chipped. I thought that was pretty insane. Ultimately, when it comes down to that game, we can say a lot of things. Of course, overreaction week for after one is what it is. But the one things we can say is it appears that playing in the preseason helped the Bills get off to a really good start. Their defense is really good. Their offense is good. Their offensive line was working well together. Whereas the Rams, because a lot of their starters didn't play, so they were just out of sync to sorts. But I thought, in my opinion, the craziest thing was that they just seemed like they were playing scared. Their DBs were afraid to move up and press, and their offensive line was like completely afraid of that. They played scared and they played timid the entire game as far as I was concerned.
Which is rare for a Sean McVay-led team. They typically dictate the pace. They're the ones that make you play their style of football. The Bills made them play their style. And you're not going to go toe-to-toe with the Bills playing their style unless your name's Pat Mahomes. I don't care who you are. That defense was one of the best defenses last year. And it looks really good, if not better, this year. And they don't have arguably their best player. You can say Miller's their best player right now, but you can make the argument for Tre'Davious White. But it's just hard to say, like, the Bills aren't the best team in the NFL when you look at all this talent and you look at their offense. Do you know the Bills haven't punted much in the past games?
No, because they're scoring or having turnovers.
Who are the last two teams to force the Bills to punt?
I couldn't tell you.
The Chiefs in the AFC divisional playoff game and the Jets. Before that, they had two games before the Jets that they didn't punt, and they didn't punt against the Patriots in the wild card round. You know what they didn't do Thursday night? They didn't punt. This offense is dangerous, and the concerns of Brian Dable leaving and Ken Dorsey filling the shoes, I don't think there's anything to be concerned about if you have Josh Allen under center and you have an offense that they know how they want to run their offense. They don't really use their running backs as much as I'd like, and we can get into this of they need to protect Josh Allen more instead of running him and taking these hits, because they are playing him a Cam Newton style, which is ironic where Sean McDermott comes from. But the problem is when you play the style like Cam Newton, no matter how big your body is, those hits take you down over time. And I just hope the Bills stop running Josh Allen like that, and they just kind of let him be a more passer, or, hey, run like a Kyler Murray does, or run like a Russell Wilson does. Not all the time, but when you see the open area, take it. But what were your thoughts watching this game? Anything else stand out to you offensively for the Bills or offensively for the Rams?
I'd say that the Rams have to utilize more of the quick reads that they're typically known for. I just think that when they were backing up to do like a 7 set drop, and this happened a lot this weekend, some of the teams that had offensive line struggles, when they try to go back into a typical 5 or 7 step drop, they just didn't have the time. Whereas when you're putting their players in motion, you're doing quick reads, getting the ball out of your hand, it's putting the defense more on its heels. So I think that they're going to really have to start working on some more of that. It's just clear that with the loss of some of the offensive linemen that they have lost in the past recent years, they're just not as good as they were, and they need to protect Stafford. I really don't think that his elbow was the cause of a lot of the problems that happened this game. He just couldn't step up into the pocket, and he was pretty timid just because he was getting hit all the time. And if you can't step up into the pocket, and we can talk about that a lot from a lot of these games this weekend, you can't be successful. You can't hit those throws over the middle and dropping them in between the linebacker and the safety. So it just you need to solidify the line so that they can take more time, or you need to go to a quicker passing game so that you can get the ball out of his hands quicker.
And the Rams played the Falcons this upcoming week. If you have O-line issues, like you have issues putting the ball upfield, minus AJ Terrell's guy, there's a lot more cause to be concerned. Because, like I said, this Bills defense was very good last year, and they look very good this year. The Falcons are a young defense that's inexperienced. AJ Terrell's the one certain on that defense that we know of. If the Rams have struggles in that game, I'd be a lot more concerned. But something that really took me aback was they didn't throw much to Allen Robinson. And I think Allen Robinson is a big addition for this Rams offense. I think he's better than Odell. I think he's better than a lot of guys that got. I was just surprised they didn't throw to him. And the reason why, and I believe this was Sean McVay that said this, the Bills ran zone. They ran zone the entire game, and the Rams are kind of known for being zone beaters. They didn't beat the zone.
Well, and that could be it. What I looked at when I saw that they didn't throw much to him is that since Stafford didn't have that much time, he was going with the people that he was familiar with. And I mean, think about it. He hasn't had hardly any opportunity to work with Robinson. So everybody that he was throwing to were the people that he normally would throw to. So,
which is true. And here's the thing. The Bills are so talented. Like, watching them play NFL football, it's just not fair if they stay healthy. This is the best team in the league, and it's not going to happen. But if you told me this team went undefeated throughout the season, I'd believe you. They're just so talented. If they can stay healthy, there was a legitimate shot they get their first Super Bowl trophy in Buffalo. But let's switch gears to the other game, which would be Seahawks-Broncos. And I don't know if I have as much to say on this as you do, I'm sure, being the resident Seahawks fan.
Well, just so that we're clear, Denver should have won that game. They had a lot of mistakes that basically cost them the game. I still am not sure what happened at the end of the game, but you know the old adage, one play does not make the game. But I was really, really happy with how Seattle played in the first half. Kind of like what we were just talking about. A lot of the stuff that they were doing in the first half was quick drops, 3-step drops, get the ball out of Geno's hand, let the playmakers do it. They were attacking the linebackers for the Broncos. They were utilizing the entire field and pretty much keeping Denver on their toes. On the second half, it seemed like they stopped doing this, and that's when they started to, drop back to some more 5 and 7 step drops. Gave up both of those sacks with deep drop back, and they just weren't utilizing the quick reads and the go that way. The running game, I think, will come about. Denver's got a pretty good interior run defense. Their linebackers are better on run defense than in coverage, which is one of the reasons why Seattle was utilizing their tight ends so much in the first half. But other than that, I'm very, very happy with how the tackles played. I'm really happy with how Tariq Woolen played. He had a couple of pass interference calls. One was just, you got beat. He didn't look. And the other one, I'm not exactly sure what he was doing there, but he didn't really need to do that. So I'm happy with that. You can definitely tell that Jordan Brooks not playing in the preseason kind of hurt him. He was off a little bit, and I think that'll just come. He had that hamstring injury, and so he wasn't getting a lot of playing time or practice time for that matter. So I really think that'll come around. Geno, let's face it, everybody just assumed that Geno was going to crater, and he didn't, which leads me to wonder. He was high coming out of West Virginia. He was a high draft pick.
Second round,
yes. And he went to a toxic environment, for lack of a better term.
Defensive-minded head coach.
Marty Mornhinweg was the OC at the time. He didn't have a lot of weapons around him. And he just didn't have the support that he needed. So he's bounced around a little bit. He's played here and there, but he is now getting a shot. Am I going to say that he's better than Russell Wilson? That's just ludicrous. Am I going to say that he's a top 10, 15 quarterback? No, I'm not. But with just watching how he played last year when he had that limited time, I think that he's pretty serviceable in this offense. He's got to know when backside pressure is coming around. But other than that, I mean, he can make all the throws. He was pretty aggressive. I was impressed. I just think that we might be seeing a Geno Smith that we haven't seen before. And maybe it's just the maturation process. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, they've got some big tests. I mean, the Niners this coming weekend, that's no easy task. These tackles, these rookie tackles, are in for a rude awakening there. So I just think that Seattle will be better than everybody thinks, and I'm happy about that. Whereas Denver, you could definitely tell that not playing in the preseason hurt a lot of their starters in the first half, but they started coming around. Russ seemed a little tentative, but I mean, there was a lot of hype to this game too. So I just think that all in all, they'll be okay. I still don't think that they're top 1 or 2 in their division, but they're still a good team.
So, answer this question about Geno Smith. There are 3 moments you can think of for Geno Smith. Which one's he going to be most remembered for? Getting his jaw broken by a teammate, being the guy to replace Eli Manning for a start, then immediately getting benched, or winning Russell Wilson's return to Seattle game. What do you think he's going to be most remembered for?
Oh, sadly, I'm sure it's going to have to be him getting his jaw broke by a player in the locker room.
Still one of the funniest stories out there.
But all of those happened to him. He's maligned in New York because he broke Eli's streak. Wasn't his fault.
No, it was the idiot head coach that had an ego problem.
So, we'll see what the rest of his career looks like. I mean, we know the Seattle's future quarterback isn't on the team right now.
No.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But Geno may play himself into another, maybe a starting role somewhere else for next season or the season after that, depending upon what happens.
Or, and I'm just going to use this because I'm a Gators fan, Anthony Richardson's a very raw talent. You could draft him and have him sit behind Geno for a year. But I want to talk about the Seahawks from what I saw. Number one, Noah Fant was a fun player to watch, but all their tight ends I felt played very good. And you did say Denver's linebackers aren't great at covering tight ends. That's very clear. They miss Josie Jewell a lot. But I liked what I saw from Noah Fant. I liked what I saw from Colby Parkinson. I liked what I saw from Will Dissly. Guys that wouldn't have been included as much in a Russell Wilson-led passing attack. DK Metcalf, wish he didn't fumble. He made me stress out a bit with fantasy football, but he overall did fine. Tyler Lockett didn't have a Tyler Lockett with Russell Wilson game, but he played fine as well. There's going to be growing pains for this offense. And you can say, well, you shouldn't have that with a veteran quarterback. Well, you know what's going to not be the easiest thing? Having 2 rookie tackles. That's not easy. And they played very good. Those are both their first career ever starts against Bradley Chubb, who is still a very good player, and Randy Gregory, who is still a very good player. Those two can get after veteran tackles. So they held their own against pretty good edge rushers in the league. And my other takeaway is Sean Desai is a wizard. I know you've been complaining. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. The DC they had last year. You want him gone for how many years?
Ken Norton. Honestly, I didn't want Ken Norton to be a DC, period. He's a great linebacker coach. I just didn't think he was a great option for defensive coordinator. And sadly, I was right. But no, Desai, Clint Hurt. I love Clint Hurts.
I don't mean to ignore Clint Hurt here. I was just Sean Desai is more known than Clint Hurt is as a coordinator, and I assume Desai had some involvement in the game plan.
Oh, definitely.
But Seattle's defense, Nwosu played good. Their defense played good, and especially on those goal line stands. Now, are you going to get a fumble on the 1 yard line every time? No. Is it funny it happened with Russell Wilson against Seattle? Kinda is. But Denver had 3 first and goals. They got 3 points out of that. That is bad. That's bad play calling. That's bad preparation. That's bad all across the board. Now, here's a question that's going to sound crazy. Is there a possibility Nathaniel Hackett is a 1-year coach in Denver?
No, I don't think so. I mean, let's face it. He made a mistake at the end of the game, but the logic behind his mistake at least was sound. It was his first game. There was more.
Not his first game as a head coach, though, doing everything. He was the interim in Jacksonville. But before we get into this, I want to explain my point of why it's possible. I don't think it'll ultimately happen. But he was hired before this new ownership group got involved. He was hired before a new team president was involved. It is possible that the ownership can be like, well, this guy, let's just say they missed on the playoffs by 1 game. Well, that decision costs the playoffs, so he's fired. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but billionaires aren't known for being patient individuals when it comes to sports franchises.
I honestly don't think that'll happen. I really don't. He's got a good background. Like I said, some things were different. You got to remember it was his defensive coordinator's first time calling plays as well. So, yeah.
Everyone, check out the Denver Broncos video I made. You hear me talk about that? Self-plug, I don't care.
So I think that they're good enough right now to compete in that division to be number one? No, not really. They have got a lot of talent, but like we talked about in one of the previous sessions, I still think their edge rushers are fourth best in that division. Uh, they have good receivers. They have probably the best running backs in that division, but their linebackers are still kind of suspect in pass coverage. You have Kelsey in that division, Waller in that division. Not exactly the easiest covers for a linebacker. What are you going to do? You're going to put Patrick Surtain on him, and then you're going to leave the outside wide open. So there's a lot of things that they've got to figure out.
And Denver had a pretty massive injury to their secondary as well, and Justin Simmons being placed on
Justin
IR.
Simmons being out for 4 weeks. So their schedule, though, I mean, you think they've got the Texans this week, and then in week 3, they've got, who do they have?
We're both pulling up.
Yeah. So they've got the 49ers in week 3. Not the easiest thing, but we can talk about the 49ers on another day. And then in week 4, they are playing the Raiders. So, I mean, they've got a tough schedule.
And then the Colts, which, man, is it crazy to say they'll be under 500 by the end of week 5?
I don't think it's crazy to say at all.
Is it crazy to say I think they only have 1 win?
I think they'll beat Denver. I'm sorry. I think they'll beat the 49ers.
I know. That's what I'm saying. They'll win.
You don't think they're going to beat the Texans?
Give me Davis Mills, and we're going to get into that because I have stuff to say about Davis Mills, so we'll get into that. But overall, this game, and it is, everyone's going to remember this as the coaching decision error on 4th down. I still hate kicking a field goal that far. I hate it, especially when you paid Russell Wilson that much. But there are positives. I really like Denver's run blocking a lot. That was my takeaway. Like, everyone was talking about Russell Wilson. When I watched that game, that run blocking was awesome. They got out and they were plowing holes for Javonte Williams, which should terrify everyone. Because I saw Javonte Williams make a lot of guys miss and a lot of guys look silly when they have him dead to rights. If he has a Mack truck in front of him clearing out a path, that's terrifying. But do you have anything else to add about this game?
Go Seahawks. You're
not going to get a let's ride in? For shame. Actually, wait, no. Denver, let's cry. Yeah, I know that. That was bad. But do you have any thoughts on any other games this past weekend?
Overall, I just say that there was a lot of things that happened this weekend that I think will come back down to reality. I doubt if we'll see another, monsoon game anytime soon.
Which was awesome. Anyone who says that that's a reason Chicago should build the dome, wrong. Stop watching it. That game was awesome. I'm going to rewatch it again. I've already rewatched it once. I will rewatch that a second time. That is football.
Other than that, there are some offensive lines that really need some help. The demise of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be.
No, but let's go into that game a bit. Where did the Cowboys go without Dak Prescott?
Well, I don't think they go very far at all. Remember, they are one of your playoff teams. They're not one of my playoff teams.
I had them in the playoffs strictly because of Dak. Without Dak, they're at the bottom. Like, I don't even know if they're better than Giants without Dak. That's how much I think Dak is good. Now, I know a lot of people think Dak's overrated. I think Dak's top 10 quarterback in the NFL. But without him, like, that line didn't look good. Those receivers did not look good.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. They had CeeDee Lamb and they had Schuster, really, and that's pretty much what they had. I was really surprised that.
Huh?
I'm sorry, not Schuster.
Schultz?
Yeah, Schultz. Thank you. I'm really surprised that they didn't utilize Pollard out of the backfield more, just to give him another option, a dump off option, uh, or even Elliott for that matter. I just thought that the play calling was for what they were for the time that Dak had. They were trying to go down the middle too much to hit CD Lamb, but they were collapsing. They were leaving everything on the outside there. And I just think that it was a really poorly called game.
Yeah, their defense played good. Micah Parsons was a stud, but just without Dak, that team's not doing much.
Their defense played well, but their interior defensive line is undersized. And because of that, they gave up a ton of rush yards. They were getting blown off the ball. So that's something that they're going to have to try to figure out rotationally or whatever else to to secure that up.
Yeah, you weren't able to rewatch Chiefs Cardinals yet, correct?
No, no, I haven't.
I'm just gonna ask you what your thoughts on all off season. I had to hear from this guy. The Chiefs are done. They are not going to be as good. The Chiefs were very good. But I want to talk about Steelers Bengals, the game that gave me 15 heart attacks in only a couple hours, and I wanted to spend my night in the hospital that night. That game is a tale of two halves, and the two halves are Joe Burrow struggling versus Joe Burrow being Joe Burrow. The Steelers' defense dominated that first half. You can say, oh, the Bengals got points, the Bengals got points. They beat up that offense line. They beat up Joe Burrow. They beat up the receivers. It felt like even on the incomplete balls, like balls that were getting picked, they were lowering their shoulders and they were making their receivers hear footsteps for later on. Now, Joe Burrow came out in the second half, played great. If you doubt Joe Burrow at this point, you're an idiot. Brought them in the game, had a touchdown that didn't get called a touchdown and they didn't challenge, which is still stupid to me. Then they fail. So what happens? Oh, you get the ball back, drive down the field. Ja'Marr Chase, I believe it was? Or my game?
Yeah.
It was Ja'Marr
No,
Chase?
it was Ja'Marr Chase.
Ja'Marr Chase catches the touchdown. But, and to my happiness, the backup long snapper was in. Took too long getting the snap off. Mika Fitzpatrick was able to get in there and block it. Send overtime. And that overtime was very interesting because we saw what happens when you have a backup long snapper. As he snapped it too high, the holder had issues getting it down. McPherson wide left. Chris Boswell gets a shot. Boinks it off the upright. Bengals driving. Arthur Maulet. And I want to specify Arthur Maulet is the unsung hero of the Steelers this game. Because he had a blitz off the edge. No one picked him up. Sacked Burrow, forced a fumble. Knocked them out of any shot of kicking a field goal. The Bengals were forced to punt. Steelers drive down, and they score the game-winning field goal. And there was one play in particular I want to talk about that drive down by the Steelers. I can't remember if it was third down or not off the top of my head, but Mitch Trubisky got the Bengals to jump off sides. He throws it to Pat Freiermuth. Freiermuth gets a big gain, gets them practically in range for a field goal. They have to get a little bit further before they kick it. But why am I singling out that play? That was really the only time we saw Mitch go off script. We saw him improvise. We saw him on the run, use his legs a lot more. Eyes downfield, he has a big-time play. In order for the Steelers to win games with Mitch Trubisky, you cannot say, do this, stay in the pocket, you're a pocket passer. Mitch Trubisky's not Ben Roethlisberger. He does not have the vision Ben does. He does not have the play rec that Ben does. He does not have a lot of things Ben does not. Ben has. In order to win with Mitch, you have to let Mitch be Mitch. And the Steelers did not let Mitch be Mitch, and they are lucky to have won a game against the Bengals in Cincinnati. Do you have anything to add from that?
The only thing that I'll say to that, because you pretty much hit everything right on the nose, I'm a little shocked that knowing that you have a backup long snapper and the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line has pretty much been eating your lunch all day. I'm really surprised that they didn't go for two and just end the game that way. They had already committed a 2-point conversion anyway in that game. So I'm not exactly sure as to why that happened. I really don't.
I'm just going to say it. Zach Taylor's not a great coach. He's an average coach in the NFL. But overall, it was a fun weekend of football. And there's one last thing I want to touch on. The Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. I don't care if you say Davante Adams. Davante Adams is very good. Justin Jefferson is a better player. Now, you didn't watch this game, if I'm correct. You were busy.
Yeah, I didn't watch it.
The Packers could not cover Jefferson to save their lives. He was open. Kevin O'Connell schemed him open perfectly. Justin Jefferson's winning Offensive Player of the Year. Mark me down right here. He's winning it. But those are all my thoughts on the Week 1 games. Do you have anything else to add, or do you want to go into predictions?
I think we can go into predictions now.
Okay. For the first game, and this is the game we will be reviewing next week, Chargers Chiefs in Kansas City. First game on Amazon Prime Video. Who do you got?
I'm going to take Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
So I will have them probably splitting. Tie goes to the home team, in my opinion. That's how I always do it. Next up, Dolphins-Ravens.
We're probably going to choose differently here, but I'm going to take the Dolphins.
We're not. I'm going to choose the Dolphins as well. They keep the same defense coordinator they had last year that blitzed Lamar. Lamar struggled against Miami. He has struggled against Miami in his career. Give me the Dolphins. Jets at the Browns.
I'll take the Browns. I'll take Nick Chubb.
That's what I'm going to go with. This is a game I will not be watching, so do not expect any of my opinions on this game unless weirdness happens. Commanders at the Lions.
I'm going to go with the Commanders here, and it's not that I feel good about it, but I think after what the Lions put out last week, I think they might just be a little spent. I think they're a much better team. I actually like the Lions more than I like the Commanders, but I'm going to take the Commanders.
I'm going to take Commanders as well, mostly because that receiving core in Washington is deadly. Those are three guys that you have to worry about covering. Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, and Jahan Dotson. It's a dangerous triplet. Patriots at the Steelers. Steelers. Now, am I concerned that TJ Watt's not playing? Yeah. But I think this defense is good enough to beat a struggling Patriots team without him. Also, it's not a guarantee Mac Jones plays. And I don't trust Bailey Zappi against this defense. Do you?
No.
Colts at the Jaguars.
Colts.
I'm going to agree with you there. I think this is going to be a very good game, though. Bucks at the Saints.
I'm going to say that Brady gets off the schneid and actually gets a win.
I agree, but I think this game is close. The Saints have historically, since he's been a Buck, stopped Brady, but they are weaker defensively without Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So I'm going to take the Bucks. Panthers at the Giants.
I think I'm going to take the Panthers on this. My reasoning for it is that I think they'll utilize Christian McCaffrey a little bit better. Baker started to get in a groove at the end of that game, so I think they'll play better.
I'm jumping on the hype train. I'm jumping on that Brian Daboll hype train. Give me the Giants. And Saquon Barkley, because that looked like Penn State Saquon Barkley. That looked Saquon Barkley before the knee injuries. And that's a scary, scary thing. Falcons at the Rams.
The Rams.
Agreed. Seahawks at the 49ers.
My gut tells me that the 49ers will get the win. And it makes me want to cry, but I'm going to go 49ers.
I'm going to disagree. Give me the Seahawks. Until I see Trey Lance put up a performance that I can rely on him, I'm going to be picking against the 49ers.
I understand exactly where you're coming from them there, but Seattle gave up a lot of rush yards this past weekend.
But the 49ers rush offense struggled once Elijah Mitchell went down. They struggled.
Well, I think a lot of that. Yeah, no, I'm not. I will not be displeased.
Bengals at the Cowboys. We're both picking the Bengals. We don't have to talk about this. Now here's where we get interesting. Texans at the Broncos. Already said I'm picking the Texans. Who do you got?
The Broncos.
Mark my words. Davis Mills is going to win this game. He's going to have a fourth quarter comeback. He's going to drive down length of the field, and he is going to beat the Broncos. I don't think those Broncos are going to be able to cover Brandon Cooks, and I think they're going to have a big difficulty with O.J. Howard this upcoming week.
What I would say is we saw how susceptible they are to the run. Jonathan Taylor had a really good game.
Okay, counterpoint, it's Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, but Javonte is pretty darn good himself.
Javonte is good.
Melvin Gordon is still good. And I just think that another week, I won't bet against Russell Wilson twice.
I will. Made me money last week. Cardinals at the Raiders. Give me the Raiders.
Raiders.
And I think this is a blowout loss for the Cardinals. I don't think it's close. Speaking of games I don't think will be close, the Chicago Bears entering a pissed off Aaron Rodgers-led Green Bay Packers. Give me the Packers.
Yeah, I'd say the Packers are gonna get this one too.
That being said, if the Bears do upset them, sports talk radio will be glorious.
I will have to do something that I don't like to do, and I'll give Aaron Rodgers a little bit of credit.
If you hear puking, that's why.
He came out and said this week that you just have to be a little bit patient with the receivers. They haven't had a lot of time to work together and everything else. And the fact that he just didn't blame them, I was impressed with. The irony of that is, what's the guy making like $100 million a year, and he can't take a couple weeks and work with the guys, ahead of time. I find that kind of ironic, but
it would have interrupted his cleanse time.
Exactly.
You're dealing with it right now. What Rodgers has to deal with after a cleanse.
Yep.
So let's get into the 2 Monday Night Football games. That's right, everyone. There are 2 Monday Night Football games this week. Titans at the Bills. Give me the Bills.
Bills.
And this is one, and I will have to write this down. Vikings at the Eagles. And what's your point total? Yeah.
I'm going to go Vikings, and I'm going to go 53.
I'm going to go Vikings. I'm going to go 42. I feel like that Vikings defense is going to give Jalen Hurts issues. I didn't like Hurts when he threw the ball that much against Detroit, and I think Vikings have better defense. Especially with the Darius Smith and Danielle Hunter coming off the edge. 2 terrifying edge rushers.
Well, yeah, they're terrifying, but they were going against backup tackles too. So, you could also make the point that they should have done a lot more than what they did.
Yeah, true. But that's going to wrap us up for this week. Next week, we will be reviewing Chiefs-Chargers and probably have our thoughts on other games from the past weekend. I'm going to be signing off. Do you have anything to add?
No, I'm glad football's back.
Have fun and be safe, everybody.